I now want to check in with the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, because I think it's important, 24 hours on from that announcement yesterday, that we find out how the Jewish community is feeling. Peter Wertheim is the co-CEO of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry. He's on the line with me now. Peter, good morning to you.
G'day, Mark.
Mate, you've been through so much. You've also had to launch civil proceedings against a hate preacher. Mate, how do you feel knowing that what you've been fighting against and what you've been warning against has now been confirmed by those in Canberra?
Well, it gives us a little bit of comfort, I guess, to know that we've been proven right. But on the other hand, it's no comfort at all to know that we've been targeted as a community by a state terrorist actor. People in our community who've had their businesses firebombed or a synagogue firebombed or come under surveillance are obviously going to be feeling very jumpy about whether the danger is now past. I mean, yes, the government's taken this action, but if you listen carefully to what Mike Burgess said, he was talking about a multi-layered organisation of criminals, both local and offshore, who were acting ultimately under the direction of this criminal regime in Tehran. And it gives us absolutely no comfort at all. In fact, quite the opposite, to know that some of these people might still be at large. We don't have any assurance that this is yet over, and our community is understandably still feeling very fraught, as we have for the last 22 months, at this sort of behaviour.
Peter, have you had any communication from those in Canberra or the Prime Minister himself?
We received a call from the Prime Minister's office just before the announcement yesterday to tell us that the announcement was coming. And, of course, the measures that have been taken, particularly the decision to amend the criminal code so that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps can be proscribed as a terrorist organisation. That's all welcome news. We've been calling for that for a long time. In fact, we made a written submission to a parliamentary inquiry back in December 2022 calling for this action. We repeated the call in June last year. We published information on our website about what the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is, what its aims and methods are, what its form is in other countries, in Europe, in South America, even in Thailand. And we were calling for this action a while ago for this very reason. And we were saying, we know from our own community that our community organisations and businesses and individuals have come under surveillance, which are almost certainly linked to this sort of pattern of behaviour that the Iranian regime is known for. And we were asking for these measures to be taken at that time. It's sad that it has had to come to this particular point where the government has been presented with incontrovertible proof by ASIO that what we were alleging is actually true for this action now to be taken. It's welcome action, and we support it. But I guess it's always a dilemma. Do you wait for the actual worst to happen with these fire bombings and everything else, or do you act preemptively when the signs are already there?
Yeah, and let's not beat around the bush either, Peter. We're extremely lucky that Australian wasn't killed as a result of what's transpired and played out on our streets since October 7 of 2023.
You're absolutely right. And I'm reminded of one of the worst terrorist attacks that the Iranian regime was responsible for. It occurred in Argentina in 1994. There was a bombing of a Jewish community centre there. And, of course, a number of people in that building were killed, but also just passers-by, people who just happened to be walking past that building on the street at the same time. They accounted for the majority of the casualties, which shows that terrorist activity, like any other criminal behaviour, is not just a danger to the people who are targeted. it's a danger to the whole country. It affects our national security. And of course, in this particular case, beyond national security was also an attack on our social cohesion, setting one part of the community against another.
It's the reason why too, Peter, I've been so strong in reminding people about the importance of our relationship with Israel from an intelligence point of view as well, because that intelligence has helped us foil terror plots in the past. And given what was confirmed by ASIO and the Prime Minister yesterday, I would have thought now a priority for Anthony Albanese would be to repair whatever relationship is left with Benjamin Netanyahu, because that intelligence could help foil potential plots into the future, given we now know that terror has arrived on our shores. Do you agree or not?
Of course I agree with you. I mean, the terror plot that you're referring to involved a passenger airliner that was taking off from Sydney Airport in 2017 with 400 passengers on board, and Israeli intelligence notified their Australian counterparts just in time to enable the terrorists who were plotting to bomb that airliner and kill those people to be arrested and apprehended, and foiled the terror plot. So, it's not something that you see often referred to in news reports, but that was just one occasion that we know of where Israeli intelligence actually saved Australian lives. I don't know whether Israeli intelligence also contributed to ASIO's inquiries on this occasion. It may or may not. I have absolutely no inside information about that. But I do know that the sharing of intelligence between our friends and allies is absolutely essential in combating the insidious behaviour of terrorist regimes like the one in Tehran, which use not only their own nefarious agencies like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, but also international drug traffickers who are given asylum and live in safety in Iran, and use their connections with local criminal networks to help the Iranian regime carry out its aims. It's a terrifying prospect for everybody, but it's not just Australia where this has happened. As I said, they have form. This has happened in the past. It's well documented in the UK, in France, and elsewhere.
Well, one final question, Peter. Given you are the co-CEO of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, which represents Jewish Australians, do you feel there should be an apology from the government for how they've allowed this hate to continue across the country over the last couple of years?
Well, look, I don't say that the government is responsible for the hate. The question is, have they done enough to bring it to heel? And one of the things that really disturbs us is the presence of extremist elements at a lot of these protests that you see, these anti-Israel protests every weekend. I'm not saying that the majority of people involved in that are extremists themselves, but at every protest, without exception, these extremist elements are there, and the organisers do nothing to bring them to heel or to exclude them from the protests. In fact, they are allowed extreme prominence, as we saw on the Harbour Bridge, where one person was right at the front of the march carrying a portrait of the Iranian dictator. And the government needs to call this out. I would like to see the government call this out, to say, look, we understand, there are some people who are just protesting against war and suffering, fine, but don't allow yourselves to be used in this way, and make sure, if you're going to protest, that you're going to be conscious of the extremist elements within your ranks, call them out, exclude them, so that the democratic right to peaceful protest is not exploited to foment social division within Australia and to ultimately ruin the democratic, peaceful and prosperous way of life that we've long known. Yeah. That message has to come from many sources, including the government.
Yeah, we need leadership. You're exactly right. Peter Wertheim, I thank you for your time as always, mate, and keep going strong. I know it's difficult, but you're such a powerful voice, and what you're doing for not only the Jewish community but wider Australia is very, very important.